Episode 201, Ironman Arizona with Justin Maples. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in there for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the pursuit of the perfect race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Justin Maples about his recent race at Ironman Arizona 2018 that took place on November 18th. The temperature on race day was 52 and rose to 73 with the water temperature being 61. He had a time of 11 hours, 36 minutes, 57 seconds. He's been in triathlon for a long time now and has a great deal of information to share about his second Ironman. Welcome to the show, Justin. I look forward to diving in and talking about your race today.
Hey, hi guys. How you doing?
Good. So what made you want to do this race, man?
So last year, several people that I knew had already taken on the challenge of doing Ironman Arizona, and they said it was a race that would suit me in the way I ride and the way I. Hello, that's my monster. So it would be an enjoyable race for me to be out there. And for a second race, it would be fun for me to get out of the cold of the beginning winter here in Denver and get down to a warmer climate a little bit. And everybody said it would be something fun and enjoyable as it sells out all the time. And it does. I mean, it was a great environment. And if you haven't done Ironman Arizona, you need to do it. It was a great experience.
Wow. So being that this is your second full, how is your training going into this race?
So my training going into this race was pretty amazing. So I switched coaches middle of the season. I did Ironman Boulder in June. And I switched coaches and joined Team Sirius at that point in time and asked Rebecca Keed if she'd coach me and stepped up my game and the intensity of the volume doubled compared to what I had been doing and got an opportunity to train with some amazing folks.
Nice. So what was your training like before Boulder, going into Boulder?
So training earlier in the year, I was training with a team with Lifetime Fitness. And the coach, it was a great coach for shorter distance races. She has not, that individual hadn't done any fulls. She'd done one half at that point in time. And so there wasn't a whole lot of background experience in the long course stuff. So when I went to the Boulder, I felt like I didn't know any better at that point in time. And but after Boulder, it was kind of like it was a wake up call. Like, holy cow! Did a lot of soul searching and a lot of research. Contacted a lot of people I knew in the community locally about the Ironman, and I talked to a friend of mine, several people in Rocky Mountain Tri Club, Charlie Perez, Kim Sethwan, Todd Light, some other folks that had done a lot of Ironman, and talked to them and discussed the situation and. Felt that maybe I needed to have a change for me to achieve my goals. And so I interviewed a bunch of coaches and I felt like Team Sirius and Rebecca Keat and Siri Landy would be the best choice for me. And transitioning into that group was very humbling. When you get an opportunity to go and work out with people like Rennie, Ellie Salthouse, Troy, Andreas, Chris Lieberman, Rachel Olson, Maddie Pesh, all those kind of folks out there that just are incredible swimmers and great athletes. You get humbled quick, and it was. That's all I can say about that. It was very humbling my first day in the pool with those folks.
Wow. So going into Ironman Arizona this year, what was your training like, and what was your longest swim, bike, and runs?
So my longest swim was 6,200 meters. It was programmed, it showed only in the programming on Training Peaks, I think is like a 4,500 meter swim. And when I got done, the tally, I was adding it all up because Siri, you don't wear Garmin in the pool. You just don't. You just keep going. And at about an hour and 25 minutes into it, I was just like, man, I am really slow or something's up. And so I stopped for a minute and I looked at my phone and was trying to add up all the time and all the everything else. And I was like, okay, well, so an hour and 45 minutes later, I was like, okay, well, that explains it. 6,200 meters. No wonder I'm so tired. And then my longest bike was, I want to say probably 115, 120 was my longest bike. A lot of climbing. A lot of climbing. Not something I've been doing. And a lot of bigger gear work. One of the things that Siri and Beck do, they transition you in to change your pacing, and they totally. My average cadence on my bike was 90. But that was the goal. And then when I transitioned in with Siri and Beck, and Beck really hammered down that don't worry about your power right now. Worry about your cadence. Your cadence needs to be this and this. And a lot of bigger gear work, which was different for me, as I'd done smaller gear work and not been in the big gear at a lower cadence, and so it was really an adjustment for me as an athlete. And also when you change that pattern, your legs and your knees and the stress on your on the joints and everything else, it dramatically affects things. But the way they did things and how they transitioned me to it was pretty smooth. As they do a lot of recovery work in the pool, especially after the swims and the bikes and the runs. But and then they have this one route they have you take. It's about a 6,000 meter climb from Arvada, Colorado, up through the mountains, and then back down to Boulder, and then back in Arvada. And it's a pretty brutal set to do by yourself, but it's a lot of fun.
Wow. So what about your longest run?
So their belief is not necessarily based off of how far you go. They're as an air traffic controller for my normal job, I am a database driven human being. However, Beck and Siri believe in, I guess, the run free concept. No Garmin, no heart rate monitor, just go out, enjoy being out there. So someone who's a database individual based on my job, it's very difficult for me to transition to that. And so I've been working on that. But so my longest run, I think, I'm guessing, was around 13 miles, 14 miles, I'm guessing, because I don't really know. But I know there was one day where I did like 13 or 14 miles in the morning. I did a swim. And then that evening we did I did a set on the treadmill, which was another 4 miles, or I'm sorry, 4.5 miles, a treadmill set, which equated, it was almost like about 18 miles for the build-up.
What was that workout like in the morning and the afternoon?
So the morning was 2.5 hours. Just go out and run. Just go. Doesn't matter. Their goal is time in the legs. And it doesn't matter how far you run. It doesn't matter. The pace doesn't matter. Heart rate doesn't matter. How far you go doesn't matter. It's just go out, enjoy being out running, and just enjoy it. And that's what they've been preaching to me about, trying to cut loose of technology and not worry about a certain pace or a certain distance, but just be time in your legs and enjoy being out there. And that's been a hard transition for me. But in Arizona, out on the run in Arizona, the first 6 miles, I actually kind of watched my pace and my heart rate just a little bit. And then thinking, as you know yourself as an Ironman athlete, a lot of things happen on the run mentally. And as I transitioned through that 6-mile moment and got to the 7-mile and was cruising on through things. And mentally things changed. And I didn't look at my watch anymore, didn't look at my heart rate, didn't look at my pace, and just kind of go, how do I feel right now? How do I feel where I'm at? And tried to go based off of that. And my splits at that point in time didn't really change at all. Everything at that point in time pretty much stayed the same, except for the GI issues that transpired, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have a huge issue with Garmin, with using a Garmin. That gets, as Mary Carmen once said to me, she goes, "A Garmin, what?" So.
Wow. So were you doing strength training as well?
Yes. Usually, I'm trying to remember, there's at least 1 day out of the week where there's some speed work on the treadmill. It's pretty intense. I don't want to go into how they train you, or I should say how Beck trained me, as I don't know if that goes against any of the stuff I'm supposed to do or not do, but there's a lot of speed work in there. There's hill work on the treadmills if you can't get outside, up to 12 degrees an incline. And my fastest pace on speed work was 13 miles an hour, which was pretty painful. Yeah. In a good way.
So were you doing Brixton training as well?
Unfortunately, I have to say yes. I like bricks, but because of my job as an air traffic controller here at Denver International Airport, sometimes my work schedule is a little bit complicated. So Beck had to incorporate some bricks that were unconventional. I'm assuming, because I'm not sure, that a lot of people are probably doing the same thing.
What do you mean?
So like sometimes they'll get called in for overtime, or I'll have to go in and work a late shift, or I'll have to go in and maybe work a 10-hour shift. And having a family and, being married, having a family and all those things, your life gets complicated very quickly. And then, having a job where as a manager, you have additional responsibilities to attest to. So there was some times where I went on a Saturday and had to work a 10-hour shift on a Saturday. Well, usually Saturday is the long ride for everybody. I mean, that's pretty substantial. Well, the following Tuesday, I've got a 5.5-hour ride, and I think it was a 30-minute run off the bike, followed by a swim. And
so roughly a 7-hour train day on a Tuesday.
Right. And that doesn't even, so it's a 5 hours on the bike, 30-minute run off the bike.
6 hours.
And then it was a 3,500 meter swim.
So yeah, at least 7 hours.
And that was before I went back into work at 1 o'clock.
Good thing you were hungry.
So when I say unconventional, Beck's been great about that, with working with me with my schedule and my work environment, that it's a little different, and she's had to adjust some things, and she's been very amicable with those things and trying to help me. So she's been amazing.
Good. So if we compare just your confidence levels going into Boulder and then going into Arizona, what was your
100% better?
100% better.
Oh, going in between Boulder and Arizona, 100%. I knew going into Arizona, I knew a lot more about myself, about my physical capabilities, and not based off of technology, but based off of what I had learned about me, about better pacing, a better understanding of my physical abilities as an athlete at almost 50 years old. And that's the biggest thing going into it was that. And I attribute that to Beck and Siri both. Beck just hammering home, pay attention to your body, pay attention to your body, pay attention to your body, and, get rid of the Garmin, wear the Garmin. And without that, I don't know that I would have had the same mindset or concept of what I needed to do in the race.
Because it's not necessarily power based or heart rate based. It's more of an RP and understanding. Are you doing the
totally
best?
RP,
Are you doing the best in every single moment and focusing on yourself?
That's exactly right. I was going to get to that in a minute, and there's a lot of that they teach, which you with Team Sirius, as you well know, everything is based on RPE, and I tried to think about a lot in Arizona, the differences in how I felt, and a lot of it was, keeping yourself in the moment right there where you are, and going, am I giving the best I can right now, knowing how much more I have to go? And there were times I would, no, you're not, so pick it up just a little bit. And those are the mental, and as you well know, those are the mental challenges that you face out there on that course, and trying to stay in the moment, not worried about, well, what's going to be here in a couple hours, or well, what's my finish time going to be, or how am I going to perform here? And I had to bring myself back and go, doesn't really matter what the end goal is. What are you doing right now? Because the end goal will be there. You handle business right now and stay in the moment you are. And I know Beck and Siri, they both preach that religiously. Stay in the moment, focus on where you are right now. If things are hurting, you don't like what you're hearing, change the message, change the channel in your head, and move forward. And there was several times on the run, where I had to change the channel. I had to refocus a couple times, and it was tough.
Wow.
But I was grateful.
So if we just take an objective look at how many hours you trained in 1 week, what was the most hours you trained in 1 week?
Please don't hold me to this, because Beck, I'm sorry if I'm wrong here, because I'm not looking at Training Peaks, but I'm guessing, I think around 18 to 19 1 week. And that was a couple weeks before the Harvest Moon, 70.3, the local race here in Boulder. And she, she told me, she's like, I'm going to push you as hard as I can until we got to find out where that balance is. And I understood. But also I knew that going into that race, I was probably the fittest I've been. Which was pretty amazing when you come off, when you pull into transition off the bike and there's hardly any bikes there. It's a pretty cool feeling when you're like, okay, this is a little more strange. And that's when I knew that, the parameters of what I was capable of changed, because of what they had taught me. That race didn't end with the outcome I was hoping for. But getting to that point was amazing, and there was a lot of things learned there. And I took all that and moved it with me down to Arizona when I went down there, race this weekend.
Nice. So if we take a look at your training here, you're training up to 18 to 19 hours. You also work full time. You also have a little one. You also have a wife. Were there any days where you just mentally didn't want to train?
There was a couple days where it was a struggle. Especially like there was a couple days where, you have a 10 o'clock shift. Well, the night before you work till midnight, you're a little tired. Or more specifically, there was a couple days where the Tuesday swims over in Boulder with Siri and her pros, I would work Monday till 11 or midnight, get home by 12:30. You're asleep maybe by 1:30, and then back up around 4:30 or 5, eat, get ready, get all your stuff together, drive over to Boulder, which is about 45 minutes from my house, to be there, get ready, and be in the pool ready to rock by 7. And then get your, excuse my language, but to get your ass kicked by one of the most amazing coaches in the planet. And Beck would be sitting there, busting my butt too. Yeah, I mean, those are some days where you're just kind of like, I'm so tired, but you also know what you're going to gain from that and the benefit of it in the long haul. That's what's value. That's the value of it is, what you're going to garner from that and pushing through those moments. I guess, I think, Beck told me, sometimes when you're really tired and you're really sore and you're hurting really bad, she goes, the moments where you're able to push through some of those workouts when you don't want to, she goes, those are the moments where you're making the most money, because that's where your mental training comes in, where you're mentally pushing yourself to succeed through those moments.
Right. So we already know you're an air traffic controller. You have a wife. You have a little girl. And you're also training up to 18 to 19 hours. How are you integrating training with your life successfully, where there's no conflicts?
I can't say that there's not any conflicts. If there's a triathlete, Ironman athlete out there that says that they have successfully conquered the issue of having a normal life, working, having a family, and also I'm a grandpa, having all those things, and there's no conflict of interest, there's no conflict with a spouse where, they feel like maybe you're putting more into your training than you are into things sometimes at home or into your marriage or into the real world. If somebody has that recipe, tell me. I'll let me have it.
Put it into a bottle and sell it.
Yes.
That's the answer everybody wants. Unless it's like a 40 to 50 hour day that we can just slow down time, take a few naps, and still get everything in there, we would be great.
No, absolutely. I think I think every single age group athlete out there who has a family, who has a career, would probably buy that up wholeheartedly, because as anybody that trains or anybody that does Ironman, whether it be the halves or fulls, goes through those struggles and those pains, and also that you have those issues with family.
Because it's like, I want to train when I have time, but I also don't want to upset my spouse. I don't want to put this ahead of my kids because I value them. And I'm trying to balance these plates here. And I also have to go and make some kind of money here. So I'm having to juggle these three big things.
I got to be honest with you. I am blessed because my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, which means she has a full-time job taking care of everything here at our house with our dogs, our children, our grandson. And so when I say I'm blessed and grateful, I really say, I'm meaning that I am truly blessed and grateful that my wife handles a lot of things here at the house, cooks all my amazing meals. Mary Carmen, as you know, part of Team Serious, one of the nutritionists. She does a great job. She's given me a lot of information, and I worked with her and hired her to help me with my nutrition. She sends out tons and tons of information to me and my wife. And, my wife goes to the grocery store, goes by her shopping list and makes those meals for me to help me have, to treat my body the way it needs to be treated. And I'm grateful that, they allow me this opportunity to chase after my dreams. And so I know that's not always the case where, you have, both family members are working and to support them, to support the family and take care of things. So I'm really grateful that, my job allows for us to, for me and my wife to stay home and take care of our house, our kids, and my four-legged kids, and me. So we got, as you saw earlier, I got a couple four-legged kids. So they're part of the family too. So
yeah,
but yeah, I'm really, very, very blessed. So
nice. So going into Arizona, when did you actually want to start traveling down to the race?
So I knew, I probably need to get there at least 2 days prior. 1 day of travel, 1 day to recover, just to relax and chill, and then obviously race. So I was pretty lucky that my work was they're understanding to my passions, and so I left here Thursday night before the race. Got down there, I think 5:30. So it wasn't too bad. Got up the next day, went down to the expo. So I actually had Friday and Saturday down there to chill out, relax, and get rested up a little bit. And so 2 days prior, really, I thought it was great. And honestly, the people down there in Tempe, man, it was amazing. I just can't speak enough about them. Of all the races I've done, even the cops are out there cheering you on. Yeah, they may be getting paid by Ironman to be out there or whatever it is, but when the cops are out there cheering you, it was pretty amazing.
Wow. So as far as the place where you stay, did you get an Airbnb, a hotel? Where'd you stay at?
So my brother and his fiance took care of that. We got a condo in Scottsdale, 2 bedrooms. Just trying to check it out. My brother had never been to an Ironman event, never seen me train, never seen me race. Kind of a short of a long story. Everybody was supposed to get together early this year when I did Galveston, down at 70.3 Galveston.
I did that race. It was cold.
Dude, that was stack of butts cold. Let's see, it was 49 degrees outside, and then when we got in the water, it was 69 degrees. The warmest part of the day was when you got in the water. I remember that was freezing. It was brutal. So my dad, a lot of people were supposed to come down from that to watch me race, first time ever. And then my dad got ill. We found out he had pancreatic cancer, stage 4.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we found out about the cancer about 4 weeks to 5 weeks after Galveston, and kind of threw a monkey wrench in my world, obviously. Took a couple weeks, flew home, Kansas City. My father passed away while I was there.
Really?
That was about 4.5 to 5 weeks before Boulder, so it was pretty rough. But we made it through.
How did you deal with that?
Before the race or during?
Just in general. That had to be hard.
Yeah, it was, there was a lot of runs or bikes where, you're listening to music sometimes, and something just happens and you just break down. You just start crying. You're a grown man. You just lose it. It's your dad. This is it was rough. It was very, very difficult. My buddy Josh Rutledge, one of my training partners, knew what I was going through. Was there for me a lot, helped me out. Amazing guy. And he actually raced Ironman Cozumel this weekend. Did great. But he was there to support me and help me through that. It was rough, man. It was, there were days that out on the race course, it was really hard. Boulder was, I think Ironman Boulder was, again, could be wrong here, but I think it was the second hottest Ironman event in the history of Ironman. It was 105 degrees, I think, was the highest temperature on the race course. 31, I think it was like 29, 30% of the field didn't even finish. I think there was a percentage of the pros that didn't even finish Ironman Boulder. It was really, really tough. But, I don't know. It was very difficult, for me emotionally. So having my brother come to Arizona and watch me race, I've never really been an active part of that or, interested in it. It was really amazing. And then, see him out on the race course. And then obviously, as you well know, the vibe, the intensity, the passion, that feeling, you can't explain it, unless you're there. unless you're at the finish line, there's nothing on this planet that can describe what's going on that finish line. Not only for the people in the race, but everybody that's watching, especially if there's one of your loved ones or family members racing. Yeah, having him there at the finish line was pretty awesome. So it was very emotional for both of us. So there was a lot of tears shed. Let's just say that.
That's awesome. So to progress on through here, what did you think about the Ironman Village and the check-in process at Arizona?
So last year, I had done well enough in the few races I did to get all world athlete status. So for me, when I don't wait in lines because you have the all world athlete check-in and all that. Which I really, when you first start doing it, I didn't know what that was. I was like, okay, whatever. But yeah, there was no lines for Justin. I just walk up, boom, hey, I'm an all-world athlete. They check you. Yep, you are. Please come on in. And you bypass, about 200 people waiting in line. The only thing I kind of thought was weird was they had a sprint distance triathlon on Saturday, and they had mandatory bike check-in was on Saturday. And so the only thing that was weird was that, and it just made things really tough. I mean, there was a line that was, I think, good, 45 minutes to check your bike in. So if I had a complaint, which I really don't, would have been something a little bit different with the bike check-in, the mandatory bike check-in on Saturday. Obviously, as an athlete, you want to not be on your feet as much as possible the day before. But yeah, there was a pretty lengthy line to do your check-in with your gear and your bike. We couldn't check in until noon.
Oh. Yeah,
on Saturday. I was kind of like, what's up with this? But that's when they started it, and they based it off of your number. I think it was like your number was the time frame that you were given to do your check-in. Whereas a few other the only other race, our full distance race with Boulder, was just like, okay, mandatory bike check-ins on Saturday. It starts from here to here. And there wasn't really any lines. You just rolled through, they, check your bike in, you did your thing. But this one was, I guess I didn't realize they had this sprint distance little thing going on that morning. And obviously the Iron Kids race was that morning too, but I don't think that had any impact, which is always cool to see the kids doing their thing and running around, and they got their medals, and that's always awesome too. You see that little gleam in their eye, that's always cool. But that would be the only thing I would say was kind of a bummer, was having to wait that long, because you just want to get off your feet and go home and chill, because the next day is going to be a pretty long day.
Right. So what were you trying to get in as far as food goes the day before the race?
So Mary Carmen set me up for 2 days prior, up to date, the day before the race, in regards to nutrition. And actually, she laid out a pretty definitive plan on meals, what I should eat, specifically what my likes are for the food I like, and detailed that out. I mean, breakfast, snack, post-workout snack or meal, lunch, dinner, and this. I mean, she had it dialed in, everything, and honestly, I don't remember everything about what I ate, but I just know I went right exactly by what Mary Carmen had written down for me, with what she had detailed for me for my food and eating plan for the day. And, so when I rolled around, including my breakfast of race morning, and it was dialed in. It was great. I felt amazing. So yeah, it was awesome.
I know a lot of people like to get a bigger breakfast, a smaller lunch, and then a smaller dinner. Is that kind of like what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I had a huge breakfast, nice lunch, smaller. I had a fairly smaller meal in the evening. Wasn't too big. Had a little bit. I think I had 6 ounces of salmon. What else? A small salad. I think 6 or 7 pieces of asparagus, and half of I forget. Not a potato, not a normal potato, but a
sweet potato.
Yes, I think half of a sweet potato. I think it was, and
something about the taste of a sweet potato I just can't get past. Man,
really,
I just can't get past it. I don't know. Like I've tried.
I did not used to like sweet potatoes, but as I eat, as Mary Carmen, there's the sweet potato. She's like, yeah, you need to have them, and I was like, okay. So I really enjoyed the sweet potato stuff, so I had that, and then so that was about it. That was about it for my dinner.
So the day before the race, you're laying out all your bags before bike check-in. What are you putting in all of your bags?
What am I putting in all my bags?
Yes.
So, Beck and I had a really great discussion about what we were going to do that day, because we knew the air temperature was going to be around 55-ish. I'm sorry. It was I think it was almost 49. I think it was almost 49 or 50 degrees was what the forecast was for when we got into the water. And then the forecasted weather air temperatures when I got out of my time frame for me to get out of the water was going to be around 55. So we talked about it. So I had a vest and sleeves, arm warmers. And so one of the things we discussed was, would that be enough to offset any temperature issues on the bike? And so I wore a Speedo and my wetsuit. And then in my bike bag, I had my full kit. And then obviously, everything else was already on my bike. So I had a towel in there, dried off real fast. My transition took a couple more minutes than everybody else, but I also knew that a couple more minutes was probably going to be something that would help me as you're cruising around at 20 miles an hour on the bike and it's 55 degrees and your kit's wet. That first 30 minutes, as you well know from, when you did Galveston, I remembered how rough I felt and how cold I was.
And your hands just feel frozen.
Right. And I had gloves, and she told me, she goes, go get a pair of gloves. She goes, trust me, it will save you. Because if you are, those couple of little things to help, you're mentally not worrying about that. It's not something that's integrating into your mind. If you got gloves on, arm warmers on, and the wind vest on, she goes, your core temperature is going to be fine. You're not going to be worried about how cold it is. So mentally, it's one less thing in your head. And she was right. I was extremely comfortable. It cost me a couple extra minutes in transition, but the truth be told, in the big scheme of things, I think it was better served. That first 2 hours, you could tell people were cold, going up. Yeah. Going up, I forget what highway it is there, but you could tell.
Beeline Highway?
Yeah. You could tell people were a little cold.
Wow.
It was damn cold out.
So, what about your special needs? Are you putting anything in your special needs bags or your run bag?
The only thing I had in my special needs bags was, let's see. The only thing I had in my special needs bags was, oh man, I had 2 bottles that had my mixes in them, and beyond the 2 bottles, I had my favorite flavor of the Clip Blocks, the gel little block cubes. So I had 2 of those, and I had 2 bottles, and that's it. Just to replace the 2 bottles I had. My goal was to do to finish 1 bottle per hour, and then that included my torpedo tube on the front. So I had a total of 5.5 bottles. 6 bottles the entirety of the ride, and yeah, that was it. That's all I had. I just stopped, grabbed those things, threw them on, and went.
Wow. So, what about your electrolytes and your sodium? Did you have base salt for this? I know you mentioned base earlier.
So yeah, I had included that already in all of my. I preloaded that into my bottles.
Okay.
Everything I had's in there. As I do.
So you had super bottles, so to speak.
What Matt calls it? Rocket fuel. So it's a mix of a lot of different things in there. If anybody's interested, you can look on, hit up Matt and Miller with Base Performance and ask him about his rocket fuel mix, and he will send you the recipe. It will definitely help you out.
Wow. So what about your run bag? What are you putting in your run bag?
So in my run bag, obviously,
shoes.
I changed. Yeah.
You got running shoes.
Actually, it's kind of funny. There was a dude in some kind of like, I don't even know what kind of shoes he had on. I don't know, it was tibia or some kind of like barefoot kind of thing that had a strap on it. It was like, I was like, wow, that looks like it's going to be leaving a lot of blisters, dude. But I was like, okay, whatever. But yeah, so me, shoes, change of socks, Body Glide. Obviously, as I learned long ago, Body Glide the bottom of your feet, the heel, the arch, real fast,
everywhere.
Clean
put that crap on everything.
A clean pair of socks. Let's see. Changed into my tri-top instead of my bike top, which I probably could have saved 30 seconds, not even messing with it, because it was probably not necessary. And then what else? Cliff shots, gels, and then I had a flask of some fluids that I carried on me just for a little sip in between the aid stations. And then that's really all I had.
Okay. So going into the day before, being that now we know where you're putting in all of your stuff, what time are you wanting to get to bed the night before the race?
So my goal was to get into bed and start relaxing around 6:30 or 7. That was really my goal. Actually, I got into bed about 7:30 or 8, and I think, and it, by no fault of anybody, there was in the condo there was a unit above us who obviously they were residents on a regular basis. A young man, probably in his teens. On a Saturday night, up watching TV right above me, and he had a dog, so I'm a dog person. That's cool, but it was about 10:30, I think, finally, and I was just like, "Dear Jesus, please, can he go to bed?" So I think I finally went to sleep. Maybe the last time I looked at my watch, I think it was 11:30.
Oh my
11:15. I was just like, "Wow, this is gonna make tomorrow pretty rough." So, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So what time do you get up on race day?
Race morning, I was up at 2:30.
Okay.
2:30, 3 o'clock-ish. Had my breakfast. So my first part of my morning breakfast, I split it up into 2 parts, was a solid and a liquid. And I'll just leave that there. Obviously, the solids went in first, and then about 45 minutes later, I had a little bit of shake, about 6 ounces of a shake that I had made.
What's in the shake?
And that
protein?
Super top secret.
Oh, secret stuff.
Is super top secret
food?
So it's got all kinds of good stuff, nutritional stuff in it. Yeah. You have to ask Mary Carmen.
Oh,
what she puts in her shakes. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Grab MC and say, "What did Justin put in his shakes?" and she'll send you the recipe. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't know if she's trademarked it yet, but maybe she has. So no, no. Some fruit, obviously some banana, a little bit of protein. I threw in just normal stuff that I normally would have in my shake, except I just reduced it down quite a bit.
Like 4 or 5 scoops of Metamucil.
Probably, yeah. Depending, the outcome on the run, you think I did, that's for damn sure. Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll get to that in a little bit. You'll bring that up. Just normal stuff that I normally intake in a shake. I just added a little extra of some of the base performance products. Obviously, kind of help load up, and then and that was pretty much it until about 45 minutes before I swam. I popped 3 Cliff Blocks, and then also sipped on a little bit of base hydro that had also some base electrolyte salt in it, mixed in, just kind of sipped on that for a little bit while I was walking down to the water. And that was basically what I did there, and then jumped in the water and went and froze my holy tokus off. And it was actually, I want to say it was, I know some people said it was like 61, but I don't even know I didn't have my, I don't know what my Garmin even said. I didn't even have it on during the swim, so I don't really even know what the temperature was. I didn't click on it. But it was pretty chilly. I've never gotten a cramp in my hamstrings swimming, but it was so cold, my legs cramped up a little bit while I was swimming. Never had that happen. I was like, wow, this sucks.
Wow.
So I know a lot of people were cold. A lot of people had neoprene boots and gloves on, neoprene hats on. It was cold enough where it was legal to wear the boots and gloves.
Did you wear that?
No.
Okay. So before we get to the swim here, you wake up at 2:30. You turn your TV on full blast, right? So that way you can wake up your neighbor upstairs?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't that guy. Okay.
No, I dropped my headphones in, and I had a pre-race
playlist
group songs. Yeah, had a pre-race playlist I had in, popped that in, and just grabbed me some. I got a little cup of coffee.
Get things going.
To my music, huh?
Get things going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, everybody's got to get that going beforehand.
Get that rolling out, right? Yep,
rolling out. Oh my God! I see what you did there. So, how far away from transition is your condo?
As the crow flies, it was about 3.5 miles.
Okay, and y'all had to worry about parking then?
So we found a spot that was like a quarter of a mile from transition. But seriously, it was one of the closest. I mean, it was the closest parking lot you get to. And I told my brother, I was like, hey, listen, we need to be here at this time, and we'll probably be able to park here. And I said, you don't understand. When this is all said and done, there's going to be 10,000, 15,000 people down here. It's going to be crazy. You don't want to walk the 3 miles, and I sure as hell don't want to walk 3 miles or 2 miles to get to a car. You just don't understand. And I said, if we get there 30 minutes early, it's worth every second. So we did, and we actually got to the area that we wanted to park in. That was literally, less than a half a block from entering Ironman Village.
Wow.
Yeah, we got really lucky.
That's perfect.
We woke up a little bit early to do it, but they understood the value of it, especially at the end of the day
when nobody wants to walk anymore.
When everybody's doing the zombie walk, as you well know what I'm saying. Yeah, everybody's kind of like, and it was kind of cool. And it was only $12 to park there all day. And I was like, that was the best $12 I ever spent.
Well, in Chattanooga, I actually got a $27 parking ticket on race day. So I understand. I parked in a parking lot whenever people locally said, yeah, you're not paying for parking on Sundays.
Right.
Okay, I'll trust the locals.
Right.
And they were right. You don't pay for parking on the streets. I parked in a parking lot. I didn't pay.
So this was a paid parking lot that you could pay to park in? it was just obviously you had to get there at a certain time to do it. And that's why I told my brother, I was like, look, man, when he'd never, my brother has never been to any of this stuff. So he doesn't understand he had no clue how many thousands of people were going to be there.
He didn't understand how big of an event this really was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it kind of overwhelmed him. And his fiance, she's done a couple marathons, so she kind of had a clue of how it would be. But it's unless
she had done like rock and roll races where there's 20,000 people.
Right. No, that's where she'd done a couple of those, and I think she did one of the bigger marathons. I don't remember. I don't know if it was Boston or New York, but she'd done a bigger marathon where it was like, she told him, she's like, James, there's going to be 10,000 people at the finish line, and there was probably a good, I don't know if there was 10, but there was
a lot.
I mean, they were lined up. If you ever done Arizona, man, you come up those little hill, you turn down there. I mean, there were thousands. There was a lot of people there.
Wow. So you get there, you get parked, and you get to transition. Mm-hmm. What are you doing in transition? I know you're putting 100 PSI on your wheels. What else are you doing in transition?
So in transition, let's see. In the morning, for me, it's more like just loading up my bike, getting everything I needed in there. Putting all my nutrition on my bike, getting the bottles in there, checking everything. Running through my gears real fast, making sure that's all good, that nothing happened overnight. And just sitting there getting ready, going over your race plan in your head while you have a moment of peace. To me, it was mentally just okay, here's what you need to do, and just kind of mentally going through the things that Beck and I had talked about the day before, and a few little tidbits that Siri had thrown at me in an email. Yes, I did listen to you, Beck and Siri. Don't destroy the bike course, which has been my Achilles heel, to want to hammer a bike course and not just pace it out better. So, but yeah, that was kind of it. Just getting things wrapped up and throw my wetsuit, walk down, and get ready to rock.
Nice. So after you put on your wetsuit, are you wearing disposable flip-flops? Because I know the concrete here was kind of cold. And if you were
just like in Galveston,
if you
Walmart,
didn't have
99 cents.
Yes, you got to get something to keep the feet off the dang pavement.
Yes, it was so it was kind of crazy because last year I did the half Ironman in Arizona. So the area transition is exactly the same. However, the entry and exit points for the water were completely different. And so you had to walk almost a quarter of a mile up to where you were kind of almost in Galveston, almost the same thing in Galveston. You had to walk.
That's exactly what I'm picturing. That's what I'm picturing, the walk from transition to the swim start. That's what I'm picturing in my mind.
Yep. You had to almost walk a quarter of a mile to where swim start was. And then it was at least a quarter of a mile. I think maybe a little less. And so there was a lot of people barefoot, and I felt for them. But that you learned that lesson. I learned that lesson in Galveston. I was like, this ain't happening. I know better. And so, when you go out there, you kind of look and go, okay, swim start's going to be over here. And, swim, exit's going to be here. And I was like, okay. So yeah, you go to Walmart and you buy that, whatever, $1.10, $1.20, cheap pair of flip flops. And they did have a huge bin of donated items. There's probably 500 pairs of flip flops in there. So, I was like, okay, well, I'm not the only one who's been down this road. But the swim sucked, to be honest with you. I kind of feel like I failed my team because my swim was not very good. My boulder swim time was 1 hour and 8 minutes, and then down there in Arizona it was 1 hour and 10 plus. Just felt really off. Swimming into the sun sucks. Let me just tell you that. As the sun's coming up and you're swimming, trying to sight an orange and red buoy into the sun. Really was pretty miserable. Felt terrible on the swim for whatever reason. I don't know why. Just could not get my rhythm. So I just thought, okay, I'll just kind of get into my pace that I can just kind of hang with. And it was terrible. I was expecting an hour to an hour and 2 minutes, maybe at the max, hour and 5 minutes on the swim, and it ended up being an hour and 10. But hey, that's fine. Let's see what else. Then came the swim exit.
Well, before we actually get there, let's actually talk about what was it like as you were lining up, getting ready to get into the actual corral. How was the corral set up, and where did you seat yourself at in the corral to get into this rolling start?
So the rolling starts I really like because it kind of at least puts you in to where you're not going to be either running over people or getting run over. So I really like that. Honestly, it was great. So they kind of funnel you down and they kind of narrow the path a little bit with the gates they had while they're going into the swim start area. And you're kind of almost 1 by 1, 2 by 2, kind of going down this ramp into the water. And I think last year they had ladders going, I think, into the water or out of the water. And a lot of athletes didn't like that. And I completely understand because they had ladders at the half Ironman last year, which I was kind of like, wow, really, a ladder to climb out of the water? And it just was, really? So they did it a little differently. So the safety and for the safety athletes, I think it was and much better. However, your timing chip, I think, hit, and it was just kind of a little weird. And obviously the water was just freezing ass cold. But I liked the way they did it for the safety of the athletes, not having to worry about a ladder or anything. They just kind of, and they had this rubber matting down on top of the walkway down in the water. So kind of helped you. So you didn't slip and slide on any kind of like slime or any algae or anything like that. So it was fine. Right.
So as you get ready to get into the water, what is your mindset for this race? You're about to go out here and do a 140.6, and this is the first time that your brother is going to be here to see you do this. So there's these emotions there, and then
absolutely.
You also know that your dad wasn't able to see your first one or this one here, so you have these emotions playing in here as well. Not only that, but you feel very confident going into this race, but your dad still isn't there. And I know that plays a big part about your race because my mom never got to see me do a full Ironman. So wow. I understand what you're feeling there.
Yeah, you get it. You get it. Yeah, you totally, wow.
How was this going into this race?
It was, my brother was up on the hill to the left of me, up in the grass, and it's go time. You're right there. Mike Riley's sitting there, at the start, ready to get everybody going. The pros are gone, and you're based off your previous times, and you're pacing, and you're in that first group of people to hit the water in the hour to hour and 5. And so you're like, okay, it's ready to rock, and you look at your brother one last time, you wave to him, and it's as you well know, that flood of emotions, especially in that moment, come over you, and it was pretty amazing.
What were you thinking about?
Well, a lot of things, like, okay, gosh, it's pretty amazing. My brother's here. Kind of sucks my dad's not. Maybe he's looking down on us thinking my two boys are there together, supporting each other. Hopefully that's what he's thinking. Hopefully he's up there going, finally, and knucklehead ass is there supporting each other after 40 plus years of, being jackasses. And, but once your feet hit that water, it's all business, and actually that was how I thought. I'm like, okay, time to go. And all I thought about that moment was, okay, You got a job to do. You've got a team to represent. You got a coach to represent. You got to, give 100% in every moment and do the best you can to do that. And the minute my feet hit the water, all that went away. The emotions went away, and it was immediate. It was business. It's time to go. It's time to get focused and do what you're taught to do and trained to do, and represent your team and your coach.
Wow. So as you're in the swim, how's the clarity of the water? Does it taste funny? Is there any worries about getting hit, kicked, or anything like this?
So the water clarity, I could not see. I tried to do a little drafting with some folks, and I couldn't see their feet. And that if they were right here, I saw. Like that, I saw. That close.
So what you're demonstrating is like 3 inches away from your face.
3 to 6 inches away, you would see the foot. And obviously you're so close that's, either you're going to get kicked, injured, or your goggles are going to come off, or a combination of. So for whatever reason, I chose the wrong goggles. I should have gone with the Roca possibly the amber colored goggles instead of the smoke gray. I couldn't see anything. I mean, literally, I could not. The water clarity was terrible. I couldn't see anything. And, I was all over the race course. It was almost impossible to sight anything for me. I don't know if it was just my lenses fogged up or there was some water. Whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You got to adjust to the environment, and I didn't adjust very well. I think I chose poorly with the lenses I had. I had, 3 sets of goggles to choose from. I think I chose poorly, and that's on me. Maybe cost me a couple minutes, but that's okay.
This reminds me of Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade.
Oh,
he chose poorly. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly that little thing there. I'm like,
Yeah. It's kind of weird because I was cruising along and we were heading into the sun, and I was like, okay, well, I can't see the buoys, so I'm going to try and figure out a point between where the sun's coming up across the horizon and this bridge up here. And I was like tracking. And so, I bilateral breathe. I take 2 strokes on one side, bilateral breathe to the other side, take 2, and then breathe twice, and then I'll sight. And then I was doing that. And all of a sudden I found myself drifting left. And I was like, okay, I'm getting really close to this shore over here. And I didn't see any other swimmers around me. So I couldn't see. It was just a really, so maybe I need to work on my sighting stuff. And I'm sure I'll talk with Beck about that. And, in the off season, maybe we'll work on some of the better sighting techniques.
So just to compare this sighting mishap to how you sighted at Boulder, what was the biggest difference? Did you choose the right goggles there? Did you sight better at Boulder?
I was right next to the buoys throughout Boulder the whole time. When I got out of the water at Boulder, I felt fatigued and a little tired. When I got out of the water in Arizona, I was not fatigued. I was not really tired. Obviously, you're always a little out of breath, but yeah.
What I'm trying to do here by asking that question is basically show you probably didn't sight as well, and you probably swam a little bit more. Even at the same pace, you're going to have a little bit longer time. So that way, don't beat yourself up to it.
No. I think I zigzagged quite a bit there in Arizona. My sighting was bad. Poor choice, and again, it's on me. Poor choice in goggles for the racing conditions. And obviously, every race you learn something. As we both know, you're always learning. And, like Beck and Siri both say, if you're not winning, you're learning. And so, there's a lot of lessons learned in that one. Yeah.
Wow. So as you get out of the swim, how does T1 go for you? I know they have some of the fake grass down and the concrete slippery and cold.
There wasn't any fake grass. It was this foam padding.
Okay.
So get out of T1. Everything went okay. But you had to run. Really, it was truly a 1/4 mile run from the T1 exit, you come up a ramp and you turn right and you run back into transition. And it was a quarter of a mile.
Is that what your watch said?
No. No, it wasn't what my watch said at all. It was based off of the swim. It was about a quarter of a mile. I mean, it was a long way. You had to run a ways. It was a ways. I was like, holy crap. So,
and you don't have on booties, and the concrete's pretty chilly, and you're wet, and all you have on is a Speedo.
Pretty much.
And it's 50-ish degrees outside.
It's a stack of buttons fold.
And you're running with your wetsuit, going into the changing tent with your bag before you change and hopefully kind of get dry before you head out on the bike ride. How are you preparing mentally for this 112-mile bike ride while you're freezing cold?
So, Ironman actually did a really great job with this. They actually had heaters blowing, I don't know, there was no smell or anything from like a diesel or anything like that. So I don't know what kind of heater it was, but they had a warm air thing going into the tents in the morning. So when you went in there, it was really warm. You warmed up really quick. And since I just had my Speedo on, my race kit was in my transition bag. So I just toweled off real fast, put on my kit. It was really warm in there. The volunteers were amazing. They're like, hey, take your time, dude. You got this. Threw on my shoes, everything else. Took a few extra minutes, obviously, because a lot of people wore their kits. But my concern was the cold and rolling out of transition on a bike where you're going to be pushing 20 plus miles an hour and it's 50 degrees. You just got out of the water. As you know, from when you did Galveston, you know how that felt. It was brutally cold. Your hands. So I had gloves on, arm warmers on, a vest, my kit underneath it. Felt well prepared to face those challenges in cold, even though it took me a few extra minutes in transition to have those amenities. But Beck and I discussed it the night before, and she had suggested I do that, even if it takes a few extra minutes. So, and it paid off.
It's worth the warmness, and it's worth the comfort of being dry, and you're not going to be out there suffering. You're going to be out there being comfortable.
Well, you're still. I think everybody knows you're still suffering, but I think the mental aspect of dealing with if your hands get cold or your core, your extremities get a little cold. Like I said, you did Galveston, if your hands got, your hands were probably like this coming off the bike in Galveston. If you were like me, you could barely move your fingers. So I learned that lesson in Galveston. I was like, that ain't happening again. And so I knew the temperatures. And so I was like, well, okay, fine. I'll take an extra minute or two in transition, but I'll have that comfort to where I'm mentally not having to fight cold.
Right.
And mentally, if you're physically fatigued because you're cold, that sucks. And I didn't want to feel that way 2 hours into a 5.5 hour bike ride. So I was willing to give up a couple extra minutes in transition to have a little bit of comfort, knowing that it would pay off in the end, and it did.
Right. So, are you wearing socks for the bike ride?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Threw a little bit of put socks on, shoes on. Obviously, your butt butter stuff, your Body Glide, whatever you use for your anti. You're going to get chafed no matter what. It's a long day. You're going to get some chafing. So you do the best you can to mitigate that. But you're always going to get a little chafing. So
right. So for this 112-mile bike ride, knowing that it's a looped course of 3 loops, 37 miles, how did you want to attack this bike ride from a strategy point of view? Using RPE, you can only use that for a certain extent because the longer you're out there, the more duration there, the more that's going to impact your ability to perceive your RPE correctly.
Right.
So how are you wanting to attack this from a strategic point of view?
So, so historically, and Beck knows this, and so we had a really long discussion about how I was going to attack the bike. As I love my bike. I love riding my bike. And as Siri likes to say, I like to try and destroy a bike course. So, and I do. I love riding my bike, and I love hammering my bike. And so we had a really long discussion about reining that back in and just kind of going, okay, hey, they wanted me to do a 6 of 10 perceived effort pace on the bike to really rein it back and hold back. And so, my first trip up the hill, I think my average speed was, like 17 miles an hour. Just trying to mentally, rein it in. And then came down the hill, went back up. And then as I felt I was trying to gauge where that was, my speed up the hill was a little bit faster every time. But my speed down the hill was just a tad bit slower, as I was trying to use gravity and use that free speed you get coming downhill as a guy who weighs 190 pounds. Trying to use a little more of that free speed, save the legs a little bit for the run, as what Beck had coached me to save those legs, save that energy, and utilize gravity a little bit more to your benefit. And that was kind of the goal, was manage the bike much better to save everything for the run.
Okay. So as far as the quality of the road here, what was the quality of the road like for you at Ironman Arizona?
So the quality of the road, I guess, going up the beeline it's the beeline, right? Mm-hmm. The main highway. That was great. There was a gentleman, I think it's Mike Freza is his name, the firefighter who passed away in California. It was a very mind-numbing, hollow moment as you're going up the hill. His bike, there was a bike set up there with his name and his family's name right there to remind you. It's almost at the top of the hill. Just, it was there, and I don't know who put it there. I can't remember. They told us, but every time you went up, you saw that, and it was a mental reminder of how lucky we are, that we're out there. And, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. I meant to kind of touch base on that, but that was a very, you could saw a lot of people. Everybody who passed by, you saw them watching it. It was definitely, it was moving, because everybody, every single person, even the pros, as they rode by, you could see their heads would look at the bike there, and the board that they had up next to it, and the bike that had his name and his family there. Everybody, it touched everybody. It was, and as you know, that is what is the coolest thing about this sport, is that, somebody like that passes away or something bad happens. I believe he got killed in a car wreck while he was training, he was out there on B Highway and got hit by a car, I think it was, and was training for Ironman Arizona and got killed 2 weeks prior to the race. I think is what happened.
I think that just reflects of how many people in this sport approach the sport with gratitude.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, definitely. It was, and so many people, I think even on the Ironman website, the base performance team site, Team Serious, the team page, I think there was several posts about people that rode by it that also just, kind of said the same thing I did, that you could tell everybody that went by it, every time you look at it, you just kind of go, wow, I'm so lucky to be here. I'm here. He's not. I'm here racing. I'm able to do this. And very grateful. You're very humble.
Man. So for this bike ride, from a nutrition plan, you're using Cliff Blocks, you're using base, You're aiming to get 400 to 416 calories, I think it is, based on the number of grams per calories from the carbohydrates. You're just like Matt Villa with using Beck. We're counting carbs. We're not counting calories. Like, I had to do the same conversion for him.
I know. It's fine. Yep. She doesn't care. She's like, I want no carbs. You got to have carbs.
Right. She cares about the carbs, which it makes sense. Hold on.
So there's probably a good 100 grams of carbs right here back. Just saying. Hey, it's off season now officially. It's okay.
Yes, for now. So how was your nutrition plan for this bike ride?
How was it, or how did it go?
How was this, and did you execute it per the book?
So I'm going to say I contemplated this. So when you talked to me this morning about coming on here, I contemplated on the plane ride from Phoenix to home, which I got home 30 minutes before you called me. And I contemplated on the plane whether or not I was going to discuss this, as some people may not realize this happens. So in every race before this, I've always stopped and got off my bike and used the porta potty. Usually only once, because I didn't hydrate well. Well, on this one, Mary Carmen and Beck gave me a very specific amount of fluids per hour that I shall, not you could, but you fucking will drink this much per hour, period. No questions asked. This is what you're going to do. Well, let me just say, I've learned how to pee on the bike while riding. And yeah.
Even on the trainer?
No. I've never been able to do it until I got to Arizona. I knew mentally, I was like, okay, you're either going to blow 10 minutes on your bike, or you're going to just figure this out while you're riding downhill. And hopefully, I actually looked behind me every time to make sure, honest to God, I was like, is anybody back there? Nope. Okay. Slightly up on the pedals, up off the seat.
Gosh. Well, you're not the first person
that is
to come
legit.
on here
I mean,
and do
you
that.
talk about brutal honesty, man. That's legit.
Man. So how much water were you trying to consume?
1 bottle per hour.
One bottle. So one bottle being a 16-ounce bottle, 24-ounce bottle?
I want to
20 ounce? I mean, you can guess. It doesn't have to be precise.
I can't remember. Whatever. 1,000 milliliters.
Okay. So you want to consume roughly 4 liters.
So the bottles you get in, the little water bottles you get at Ironman, the little pop-up bottles, I think those are 1,000 milliliters. I don't remember how many ounces they are, like 12 maybe.
Okay, well, if we just kind of ballpark it and say it's 1,000 milliliters, so you're going to get 5,000 milliliters or 5,500 milliliters, which is more than a gallon of water on the bike ride.
Right. Absolutely.
So almost a gallon, almost a gallon and a half, almost.
Yep.
So,
and that's exactly what I intook.
And that's not counting the liquid calories you're also getting.
No.
Okay. And then you're also trying to get some solid foods in there with the blocks ish, gelish food.
Yep.
So you got all those calories in exactly the time frame you wanted, and you nailed that at 400 to 416 calories.
That was. Absolutely. That was my goal. The one thing that we really wanted me to focus on, because the last race I did, sorry, Beck, not trying to call you out. I made some grievous errors on the bike, and I passed out at mile 5 on the run at a half Ironman distance race about 6 weeks prior to Arizona. And a lot of it was my fault for pushing so hard on the bike and trying to destroy the bike course and almost, pull off. I think it was almost a 24 miles an hour pace for the entire bike course. And so I didn't pace well. I did nutrition well. So one of the goals with what I was trying to accomplish was to nail my nutrition, nail my fluid intake, for this race.
Wow. So with the aid stations here, you're taking water and all that. Did you have enough time to get what you needed and discard what you didn't need with all the aid stations?
So on the aid stations, the only thing I took on the aid stations was water. My torpedo tube in the front of my bike held water. Everything else with all the nutrition and all the carbs, everything else was in the bottles behind me. I carried 2 bottles in the back behind my seat, and then the torpedo tube in front, just water that I constantly sipped on throughout the course of the race. To help with the digestion of all the carbs and everything else, all the sugars and all the gels to kind of help process that. Beck and I discussed the issue of processing that through your stomach. If all you're doing is just processing a lot of sugars and carbs and everything like that, then you don't have a lot of water going in, your stomach's going to get pretty messed up.
I've heard a lot of people priming their stomach with a swallow or 2 of water, getting the calories, and then flushing with water.
Yep.
So you're basically putting a sandwich of water into your stomach to help it absorb, and you're hydrated.
A couple small sips of water beforehand. Take in your fluids, whether it be off the bottles in the back or whether it be the solid stuff, the gels, the Cliff Bars, the Cliff Blocks, whatever it is.
Chase it with water.
Cliff Shots.
Chase it with water.
Right, and then wash it down with water because it helps your stomach digest that. If all your stomach is getting is the sugars and the gels and all those things, it's hard to digest. And those are things I didn't know about until we had that discussion Saturday night. Beck and I had a really long discussion about that, and she helped me, to learn to mitigate those issues. And we discussed it a little bit, but she really got into detail with me about it. And I was like, holy crap, now I understand. So it helped out a lot.
Wow. So what about the quality of the road here?
The quality of the road. So the highway road was great. No issues. There was a couple spots where there's some bumps. However, now the tour went, I'm going to say 3 or 4 miles coming. And probably 2 miles in and 2 miles out, right out of the transition area. It was bumpy as hell. I don't know if anybody else has said that, but that was
bad.
There was a lot of cracks in the road. And if I remember serves me correctly, it was almost the same for the half Ironman down there when I did it last year. Very bumpy, a lot of cracks in the road. Really rough. I mean, when you're doing, I think I hit, and Michelle Hilberg, who is Rocky Mountain Tri Club Dark Horse Racing, was right behind me, and she qualified for Kona, obviously, in this last race. She was right behind me on the bike, and we were both bouncing around. I mean, it was like this. I mean, on the bike. Holy shit. I saw her behind me, and I was just like, and we both backed it down. We were probably pulling 25, 26 miles an hour going into town before we hit the turnaround, but it was so bumpy. I had to slow down, or I was like, holy crap, I'm going to, it was bad.
Wow.
So we both pulled it back. And here, like I said, this is a lady that qualified for Kona who's just behind me to my left. And she's a part of the Rocky Mountain Tri Club. So, I knew who she was, and we both pulled it back, got to the 180 turnaround and coming back out. But it was kind of rough. There was a mile or two of it where, and I don't know if it's just because, in Arizona, the sun heats up the pavement and causes that. But there was about a mile or two of pavement that was really pretty rough. But other than that, it was great.
Wow. So did you see a lot of flats or mechanicals or wrecks at all?
I honestly think I could count the flats I saw on both hands. There wasn't a whole lot of flats. The course was pretty clean. I know there was one accident. I don't know who it was. There was one gentleman, I think it was a guy. I went by and I saw he was on a backboard and they were bracing his neck up. So I don't know if.
Where was that wreck at?
About a mile and a half from the turnaround point right before, so if you're going to finish, you pull in, or the turnaround point right there at the Village or the Expo right there.
Was
So
it
it's about
just
a
one
mile
bike or
and a
two
half.
bikes?
I think it was just one bike. So I think it was potentially a vehicle / bike incident, or maybe, I don't know.
Operator
like I
error.
said, very possibly. When I went by, all I saw was a dude on the ground, and they had him on a backboard.
Wow. So as far as the bike course itself, how dangerous do you feel like this bike course is or could be?
I didn't feel like the bike course was dangerous at all. In all sincerity, of all the races I've done, there was such a huge law enforcement presence there, protecting the crossways. Crowd and traffic control was, I not one time, and for the first time ever, not one time on the bike course did I feel like I had any safety issues whatsoever, at all. It was 100%. I felt completely safe out there. I mean, there was a ton of law enforcement out there. They had everything coned off. Great. Signage was amazing. So yeah, I felt completely safe.
Good.
Honestly.
So what about how the bikes are going right past each other? If one bike goes off a little bit too far whenever they're going down the side, could that be an issue?
I didn't feel so on this race. They had a whole full lane, several spots. They had the whole highway. I mean, the B highway, I think maybe you know, but we had one whole side of the B highway going up the hill. One whole side of the highway was ours. One lane up and one lane down. I mean, we had tons of room to be on the bike course. If anybody had an issue with the bike course, then, and I hate to say this and be hateful in any way, but if you had an issue with room on the bike course and maneuvering, then maybe you need to take a course in bike maneuvering or something, because they gave us all the room in the world to be out there. And yeah.
Wow.
If you've got one whole lane to ride on, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Right. So as far as the bike goes, is there anything you'd tell someone to be aware of that hasn't done this bike course before?
The bridge going across the lake is a little bumpy. So if your bottles aren't fully inside, inside whatever your bottle
cages,
however you hold, whatever your cage is, if your bottle's not fully in there, or say if you're like me on a specialized shiv, you've got the little thing that goes down off the seat post and holds everything. It's right in there. If you don't have that locked in, it may pop out because it's really bumpy right there, just because of the way the bridge is. Other than that, that bike course was solid. It was fast. It was fun. Yeah.
Wow.
I got no complaints, really.
So as you're getting closer to T2, say miles 70, 80, and 90, how are you holding up mentally? Usually these are the miles where it's a little bit darker because you've been on the bike for 3+ hours, but you're still not quite done. How are you holding up?
So, it was kind of weird because I didn't hit that point this time. When I was in Boulder and did the Ironman Boulder, when I hit mile 90, the reality hit. I was like, oh God, I'm starting to hurt. That didn't happen this time. And I don't know if that was just I'm better trained, was more prepared. I didn't feel that way the entire bike course. Beck and told me, hey, back this down, control your pacing. I didn't honestly, it was kind of strange. I did not feel that. I did not. And I was expecting it. I was like, okay, when I hit the 100-mile part, the wheels are going to come off the bus. My legs are going to go,
But you were able to stay in the moment and assess real time versus predicting it and anticipating. You said, well, I'm still going to stay in the moment.
So when I was sitting there riding, one of the things I had about 8 weeks ago, I I'd read a little bit. There's a book, and I'm sure you've read this. How Bad Do You Want It?
Mm-hmm.
And there's there's parts of that about letting go, and it talks about Siri and Brett Sutton and how he trained her and letting go and being in the moment and achieving flow. One time before Arizona, had I done that, and it was a ride that I did from my house here in Colorado, heading out east, and I did 100 miles in 4 hours and 27 minutes. Didn't even think about it, just cruising, not fatigued, not stressed, not overwhelmed, just. And I really had no clue. I was like, how the hell did I just do that? And as I read this book, I was like, and it started clicking. And so, honestly, the last, I put my head down, I looked at the white line, and I put my head to a point where I knew if I came up on somebody to pass, I might see him in time. I didn't think about anything. I didn't think about where I was. I didn't think about how fast I was going. At that point in time, I didn't think about my cadence, my speed, my heart rate. I just put my head down and I guess that flow moment happened for me for about 20, 30 miles, and it was awesome. It was like, I didn't even, next thing I know, I'm in town again, and I'm like, holy crap, I've got to make some turns up here.
So as you're getting to T2, you're in T2 for less than 5 minutes. How does T2 go for you?
So T2 went really well. The sun had come out. It was really nice out. Temperature was warming up, but I wanted to get out of the top I had on and put on my tri-top, as it's more comfortable. It's sleeveless. I grabbed, a bunch of nutritional stuff that I had in the bag and just try to breathe, relax, taking the moment where I'm at, and then just go. The volunteers were by far amazing. It just really, I can't speak enough. If anybody does Arizona, I have to say, by far, the volunteers, best volunteers on the planet. Truly, honestly, I mean, any race I've done, they were just amazing. Truly grateful that that's the kind of people we have available to us to help us. So next year, you need to come to do Arizona.
Well, I'm working out towards another race.
Which race are you going to do?
We'll get to that afterwards.
All right. So going out on the run, everything looked great. Transition went smooth. It was, if I hadn't tried to swap out my top, probably would have been maybe 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes versus like, I think it was 4.5 or whatever it was. But I was fine with it. At that point in time, I was extremely pleased with my bike. I hit the numbers I was hoping for.
Numbers? What numbers did you hit?
So my numbers in my head were, I was trying to go, okay, I had a goal of a time frame that I was hoping to meet. But the ultimate goal was I wanted to feel a certain way going into T2. That was the ultimate goal. Time was a secondary initiative. The ultimate goal was, how do I feel? I felt amazing. Legs felt great. Feet felt great. Back was fine. I didn't have any issues in my hips. I felt fantastic. And the goal, I hit my goal. Literally perfect. 20.7 miles an hour was my average speed, and that was what I was hoping for. And I felt better coming off the bike than I ever had.
And did you see your brother here at all, or any of your Sherpas?
So they saw me, but no, I didn't see my brother and his fiance at that point in time. I saw them coming down, so coming off the road.
So what they did this year was where the vendors had their tents in Ironman Expo, they pulled their tents off the sidewalk, and that was where you biked in. So I saw them coming down the sidewalk, but that's a no pass area. So you just kind of cruise with everybody down that. You couldn't pass anybody. But it was kind of cool because you had, all these people that were cheering for you. And it was really kind of cool. But yeah, I saw them as I was cruising down, but that was it at that point in time. It was kind of nice to see them. At the bike turnaround each time, they were, I wanted to do something special for them since it was their first time. So I got them the VIP pass. So yeah, they got to spectate in style, which, they loved it. And they're like, yeah, that's definitely the only way to do it. So kudos to Ironman, their VIP, program. Definitely, my family is totally on board because I did that when I did Ironman Boulder. I did that for my wife and my son and my daughter, and they all like, oh, it's amazing. So I did that for my brother and his fiance, and they both agreed that the service was great, people were great, food was amazing. So I was happy about that.
Wow. So I know the run didn't turn out as the way you wanted it to because you had to make a few unplanned for stops along the way. So I don't really want to dwell on that too much, but
right.
How many times did you have to use the restroom, and when did you realize you had GI distress?
So I'll just preface with that I've never had GI distress ever, in training, racing ever. So this was a whole new, I've heard about it, you read about it, you hear people talk about it, but you really don't know what it's like until it happens to you. And I'm not trying to call out names or anything like that, but so we're rolling through, and obviously, Heather Jackson was putting down a bone crushing pace. So, I get off the bike, I'm running, feeling okay, feel great. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just doing my thing. And all of a sudden, here comes Heather Jackson blowing by me, and I'm not even at mile 2 yet, and she's going by on her second lap, just crushing things. And I was like, hey, Heather. And she's like, yo, and just goes by me in the banana suit. I'm like, wow, she's a lot faster than I thought. And so I got to mile 2, and there's a little turnaround there, and there's porta potties there. And I'm like, stomach started feeling a little weird. And I was like, okay, let's figure this out. 2.5 minutes later, I get out of the porta potty going, it's going to be a really long day. A couple miles later, I have to jump in another porta potty and realize that, my fear is that, okay, am I going to be able to finish today?
And thankfully, they have this one-ply toilet paper in there.
Huh?
And thankfully, they have this one-ply toilet paper.
Yeah. Chafing is a whole new meaning at that point in time. I had never in the whole day. I never even the thought of not finishing ever entered my mind until the second stop in the porta potty, where I was expelling as much fluid as I had taken in, and I got really, really worried at that point in time. And then, so as I rolled through the base performance tent, Rachel Wilson grabbed me and talked to me, and as a 2019 base performance team member, I had met all the team, and they, the night before at their team dinner, and Rachel Wilson and Matt Miller and a few other people, Janelle Cashmore, I think Janelle was there, were asking me how I was doing, and I kind of whispered, hey, I've got some GI issues. I'm not feeling well at all. Grabbed some salt from them. They were handing out salt to everybody anyway, and as they always do, taking care of everybody, do an amazing job supporting all the athletes. Came back through. You go to loop and come back through. Matt Miller jumped out from DJing for everybody, threw me a bottle of rocket fuel. He knew I had some GI distress going on, I think. And patted me on the back and said, dude, you got to suffer through this and get it done. Just went on my way. 4 bathroom stops later, cruised back through. excruciating stomach pain. Came back through again, grabbed another bottle of salt from him. Came back around on the run. Meredith Kessler was out there. She looked like she was hurting pretty bad at one point in time too. When she came through, saw her on the first lap. And I don't know if she noticed my kit. I was a Team Series kit, and I'm sure she knows, that's back in the series team. And she kind of looked at me silly, just a silly look, and but she was well behind Heather. But she's an amazing athlete, and just kind of try to cheer her on a little bit, and she gave me the thumbs up. But it was an amazing day. The course was great. The entire town seemed like it was out supporting us. Thousands of volunteers out there giving us everything they had, taking care of us. And I can't think enough of the base performance team folks. They knew there was a lot of people out there on the struggle bus, and they were there to help them out. Giving out the base salt. The little containers, as I'm sure you well know, they hand those things out at the Ironman stuff. Even if you haven't bought their products, they're there to kind of support it. No, they don't care. Matt, that's amazing.
He's there to help.
Absolutely.
And he helps everybody.
No, he does. Absolutely. It's a hands down. He is there to give everything he has to support the athletes. So a little story about that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm going to give him some props. So my first Ironman was Ironman Boulder. The run course was brutal. Absolutely. The struggle bus, the pain field, whatever you want to call it. It was some severe suffering. 31% of the field did not finish.
And he was out there in the middle of nowhere.
He was in no man's land, 105 degrees where he was at. Hands down. That's what my Garmin said. And I wore my Garmin that time. And it was hot as it was painful. And I don't remember the guy's name, and Matt and everybody on the base team, I'm sorry. I do not remember the gentleman's name. Wore a red wig, was sitting there and handed me some salt, knuckle bumped me, slapped me on the ass and said, "You got this, 4 miles more. Mr. Riley is going to be calling your name." At that point in time, I was ready to call it a day. I was almost done. That moment, that knuckle bump, that slap on the ass, that salt in my hand, that comment from whoever that guy was,
it made your day.
Got me through the next 4 miles. Hands down, unequivocally, without a doubt. You never know what your actions are going to do. You never know what simple actions you take are going to have and the impact they're going to have on an individual who's going through hell. And without that guy, whoever he is, someday hopefully I can buy him a beer somewhere. Without that, I don't know if I got done. And that is amazing. And so the minute I got done, I knew right then and there, if I could ever apply for a team, if I ever could be a part of a team, that would be the one that I would apply for. And I did, and I got lucky enough that Matt and Laura Lee selected me to be on their team for 2019. So that's the story. That's the real. That's as real as it gets.
Wow. So on the run here at Arizona, miles 10 through 18, how are you feeling and how are you going as far as your pace goes? I know you're on course already to get a PR, and this is obviously going on in your mind that you're going to get a PR, but you just don't know how much.
Well, I felt really good, except for I've never farted while running, so that was kind of strange. We talked about that earlier. I've never, like I said, the GI distress was excruciatingly painful. At mile, I want to say mile 14, I threw up. There was a hill going up, and I threw up a little bit. Felt much better. I don't know. Hold on, I can't remember what mile it was. Maybe mile 20. But I got a little sick there. But it was just in my head, I thought, okay, just do everything you can, to just hold as steady pace as you can, even though you're hurting. And I knew my worry was from those mile points you just told me, my mindset and my worry was the dehydration issue as I was expelling out as much fluid as I was taking in, if not considerably more. And that was my concern at that point in time, that I knew maybe was going to cause an issue when I got to the 20-plus mile range, and whether or not it was going to impact me to be able to finish.
Wow. So as you're approaching miles 18, 19, 20, and 21, usually these are the places where it's getting really mentally depressing. You've got so much time under you, so much distance under you, but you still have over an hour to go. How are you holding up mentally and emotionally at this point?
So mentally at that point, when I hit I think it was mile 20. And mentally in your head, you go, okay, at the most, I got an hour and 10-ish to go. And then, so I immediately switched the channel. Siri, thank you. Changed the channel. I changed what I was thinking and thought about, well, shit. I do mile 10 treadmill crushing, bone crushing, excruciating hour and 10 treadmill workouts that like make the average person want to throw up. And I thought, hour and 10, nice easy jog. This is nothing. And I thought about that, and even though my stomach was killing me, and I felt pretty miserable because of the GI issues, I tried to change the channel, change the message of an hour and 10. That's nothing. That's a Wednesday night treadmill workout. So, and I'd been listening to Pink. I know. A couple songs with Pink, trying to enjoy some of her music, and thought about some of that music and some of her songs, and talking about her struggles, and that kind of back and forth between what Siri and Becca discussed with me and that song, and thinking about my dad. That got me through those couple of miles.
Wow. So as you're getting closer and closer to the end of this race, looking back on it, did you see anything funny, or any spectators or Sherpas or any other racers that did something funny for you that gave you a chuckle?
So at mile 13? Mile. I don't remember which, but one of the girls, I don't know who it was, one of the girls in the Moxie sport tent, might have been mile 17. As I think I was the only person in a Team Sirius tri-kit, jumps out in front of me, yells my name, slaps me. As boom, slap right on the butt. And I don't remember what she said, but I was just like, okay, how are you doing tonight? It was just like, okay. And then she came running up there. She came running up like immediately after that. She goes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that so hard. I'm like,
nobody saw it.
I'm good. That's not the only thing hurting right now, but you just added to it. Thanks. Appreciate that. But it was just funny. It was just, and there was somebody, I think, the other thing that made me laugh was, I think, one of the ladies in the base tent, I think, was wearing a pink taco suit. I think it was. It was like, okay. Like, literally, I think it was a taco suit.
Interesting.
It was funny. Yeah.
Was that Rachel?
They were having, and then Matt Miller, I know, he went and rented or bought, I don't know if you rented or bought it, I don't know which one, but a sound system that was so loud you could hear it all the way across the water as you exited the expo area. So you run down 2 miles, come back 2 miles, and you're at 4 miles, right? And then you're in the front of the expo where everybody's watching. You go another half a mile. you could hear Matt and the base team over there jamming for the next 6 miles until you passed them. And then you heard it for another 3 miles heading the other way, and you kind of got drowned out by some buildings. But he went and bought a sound system that everybody, I mean, they were rocking. I was like, okay, that's my team. Okay. And that was kind of motivating that you knew you had your peeps there, to cheer you on. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. So as you're approaching miles 24, 25, and 26, you're hopefully have less than 35, 40 minutes left here. How are you doing, and what is the atmosphere around you? Paint the picture of what it looks like for you.
So the sun had set, it had set a little bit. It was getting a little dark. I went past Matt. This is where Matt does his selfie with me. It's somewhere online, probably on the base team. I don't know, but we do a selfie. And so this time on the way back, they're at mile 24. So if you do the math and all that, where they're stationed at, I got 2.25 miles left. He stops me to do a selfie, and at that point in time, I'm like holding certain things in because, I need to use the porta potty again. And I got to go maybe a quarter of a mile, and there's a porta potty thing, Jesus, or, I'd be having a whole different story about my laundry situation. Get there, excruciatingly discomforting. But I also know that, okay, I've got less than 2 miles to go. We're good to go. I can suffer through 2 miles of pain and discomfort to get this done. My pace obviously slowed down considerably. I felt very, very dehydrated. Hands were shaking. My heart rate went up a little bit for some reason, even though I wasn't pushing that hard. So I felt like, okay, electrolytes were low. Hydration was low due to the bio situation and the GI distress. But I knew, I was like, you know what, I got 2 miles, less than 2 miles to go. Nothing on this planet except an act of God or a nuclear strike is going to stop me from hearing Mike Riley call my name a second time. It's not going to happen. Right. And that's kind of how I looked at it.
So as you actually get towards the finish line, you're coming up where the barricades start lining the red carpet. You can see the red carpet and all the lights.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Yes. What are you thinking about? What is this emotion like that you're feeling this time?
This time was pretty special. Yeah. It was, the only thing that would have been there was my dad would be there. But to have my brother there was something, it's always, I wondered, coming up to it, I wondered, okay, is it going to feel as majestic? Is it going to feel as empowering? Is it going to feel as amazing? And are you going to feel the same level of achievement and gratitude and appreciation that you felt the first time around? That first time you come down to shoot, Mike Riley says those magic words, and man, it felt just as amazing. Come around the corner, I looked behind me. I was like, okay, do I have the whole place to myself, or I'm not taking up anybody? I mentally thought about it, and I was like, is there a first timer anywhere near me? Because I did not want to take away from that moment from whoever. If there was a first timer, man, I was like, it's all yours, dude. And I looked around me, nobody behind me. I was like, okay, cool. And it was just as amazing. It felt just as majestic and just overwhelming to hear your name. And I looked over and saw my brother. Well, that's pretty cool.
Wow. What was that like whenever you actually made eye contact and you realized that you were done with this race and you had just completed a full Ironman?
For him or me?
You.
It it felt amazing. It's like, okay, number 2 is under the belt. Got 10 more to go for the legacy, or maybe 4 or 5 more if I can ever qualify for Kona. But to be able to cross the finish line and look over and see my brother, that was pretty cool. That was pretty special. And it was pretty neat. So that night, as he's, everybody knows what the zombie legs are. We're sitting there walking back to the car. He's like, so where are you racing next? And I was like, can I just get through tonight? And that really meant a lot to me to have him there. And the feeling, there was a lot of tears shed on both of our parts. So it was amazing.
Wow.
Words can't describe how we both felt. I know. So.
Wow. So looking back on it, how well prepared for this race do you feel like you were?
I felt very well prepared, mentally, emotionally, physically. Beck has done everything she could to help me get where I wanted to be. Siri with her team and her athletes, allow me to come, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity to be able to come swim with them on during the Tuesdays and Thursdays that she had her groups together in Boulder, and then Mary Carmen helping me get my nutrition lined out. So all those people, I'm so grateful to have, assisting me in this process, trying to get to where I want to get, and hopefully at some point in time, maybe qualifying for Kona. And, they say it takes a village, man. They're not kidding, man. I'm grateful for my village of I'm going to sound them off. My wife, my daughter, my kids, my brother, Joe Mata, Mary Carmen, Rachel Olson, Maddie Pesh, Kersey. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody else, man. Siri and Beck, all their athletes. Troy, Andres, Ellie, Rennie, thank you for the hookup at Colorado Multisport. Your boy that does TO's fitting took care of me. Thank you. Don't tell anybody that. But yeah, no, Rennie hooked me up. She saw something up with my bike, and she was like, what? And her and Beck were like, yeah, something's wrong. And she called, I don't know if she called somebody or whatever, but I went to Colorado Multisport, and they treated me like a superstar. And so that was really beautiful. And the gratitude I have for my team and the people involved in it is amazing. It's amazing.
Wow. So just to kind of look back on it a little bit more, what's something that you learned from this race that you'd like to pass on to someone who hasn't done this race before?
Take your time and relax going up the hill the first time on the bike. It's not difficult. It's not hard. But let your heart rate come down. Relax. Enjoy the moment. And thank every volunteer that's out there, because there are thousands. Truly, there were so many volunteers in any race I've ever been to. I've never seen that many volunteers. So excited to greet you and be thankful to have you there. Every other race I've ever been to, they don't grab your bike and take it for you. The only place I've ever been or saw on TV where they take your bike for you at train. I was totally unexpecting it. I came in off the bike and got off the bike, and left my, I unstrapped my feet from my clip-ins and jumped off the bike, and I'm running with my bike, and the lady's like, no, I got it. I'm like, what? They took your bike. You don't have to take your bike back into transition like in some races, like Ironman Boulder. You run your bike down back into transition and go get your bags. I didn't, stuff like that. I mean, it was amazing where they just the treatment and yeah, everything they did. It was just amazing how they interacted with you, how they treated you. So thank the volunteers because they definitely make the day. Even the police officers are out there cheering for you, and they're over the loudspeaker, talking to you. It was an amazing day.
Wow.
If I can get off of work, I'm going back to do it again next year, hands down.
Wow. So for first timers, what advice would you give them other than thanking the volunteers and taking the hill slower the first time?
Be mindful that if you come from an area where you don't have a dry climate, if you get there early, a couple days beforehand, be mindful that your hydration plan might not adjust just a little bit. You're in a complete desert climate. And here in in Denver area, due to the altitude and everything else, it's almost like a desert climate due to the lack of humidity. It's just not as hot. So down, obviously, Tempe is a lower altitude, but it's still really low humidity. So if you're there a few days before the race, I would suggest possibly talking to your coach about your hydration plan prior to the race and or even during the race, that it may need to adjust it just a tad bit because it's a completely different environment. I mean, the humidity level there is significantly different. Say you're coming from, say, California or maybe even, say, the Midwest, where, the average humidity level, it's a lot different. And even from Texas, where you're at, right? I mean, the humidity level there is significantly different than here or in Arizona.
Right.
And so that impacts
your absorption rate.
Absolutely. And so that would be maybe one of the major suggestions I would think about if somebody's going to go there and do an Arizona, whether it be the half Ironman or even the full. Really think about your hydration before the race, maybe even during, increasing it just a little bit. Or I don't know, I do use noon tabs. Not during the race, but I'll drop a couple of noon tabs in my water just to add a little electrolytes in the days leading up to the race. Might be something you might want to consider.
Okay. So we covered quite a bit about your race. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes. Your post-race celebration, if you have the means, by all means, go to Bourbon and Bones in Scottsdale. Yes, absolutely. Great service, great food, and to celebrate an amazing accomplishment of finishing an Ironman. The food was amazing, the service was great, and the adult beverages were phenomenal. So,
wow.
And yeah.
So, what's next for you, man?
So next for me is probably going to be possibly a 70.3 in Florida in May, depending upon work schedule. Ironman Boulder. Probably do the half Ironman Boulder. And Beck and I have talked about until my affinity for running improves and I get faster, a strong possibility that I'll do maybe an aqua bike or two, which will be a new adventure for me. Due to the fact that I love to swim and that I really like my bike. So we may try and do an aqua bike or two to see where I can do in that. That's a possibility, but definitely, definitely the half Ironman Boulder and the Boulder full is on my schedule for next year, and we'll see what else.
Cool. So I only have one more question for you to wrap up the episode, and that's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
A perfect race. Wow, that's whoa. You know, I don't think there's any real quote unquote perfect race. If you can ever get close to one, I think it's maybe overcoming the obstacles that you don't foresee in a race that always happen, whether it be GI distress, mechanical, whatever issue faces you that you don't anticipate coming up, because there is always something that happens, as you well know, in every race that you don't anticipate, that you can't plan for. And if you can address it, handle it, and move forward and continue on, regardless of the outcome, no matter what your time finish is, doesn't matter. But you can handle it and move forward in a positive manner, and that's, I don't know if it's a perfect race, but it's as close as, that's all perspective too, your perspective on what a perfect race is really what's of value. Right. And that's different for everybody.
Right. Well, Justin, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me. It's been so awesome to actually hear about your race, and I learned so much, and I took so many notes on this. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Okay.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.